To the House, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker.
I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I say that I understand that it's the role of the National Party backbench to get up there and read their research notes with as much energy and passion and enthusiasm as they can. And I accept that it's a legitimate role of backbench National Party government members. But sometimes I have to say, Mr. Speaker, that I sit in the House and I think, that member's better than that. And that's exactly what I've been thinking for the last 10 minutes. That member is better than the speech that he was just forced by his whips to deliver. But I commend him for doing that. I commend him for his loyalty to his party more than his loyalty to the honesty of the past. And I invite him to stop misrepresenting the past in the way that he did by reading the research notes, because they were just wrong.
Order. Can I just say to the member that members should not make reference to the reading of speeches. It's entirely a matter for the Speaker. Call the Honourable Member Ruth Dyson.
Thank you. Can I, Mr. Speaker, commend your attention to detail? It's incredibly admirable, and I hope it's as contagious as courtesy is. Mr. Speaker,
sure
there are a couple of points that the member raised when he presented so eloquently his speech to the House that I want to draw to his attention as being incorrect. He said, for example, that the public of New Zealand didn't get any increased services through the increased investment that the Labour-led government made in public services. I'll remind that member of a couple of things. For example, in 1999, the briefing to the incoming Minister of Work and Income had to be contracted out to a private contractor because Work and Income didn't have the competence within its own organisation to write a fundamental document, the briefing to the incoming Minister. Now, if Mr Okenvold thinks that is acceptable, then his standards are much lower than those that I support for the public service in New Zealand. I remember having to advocate for constituents to get into Work and Income appointments in less than 3 weeks. And that time delay for appointments to see Work and Income is creeping up every month. Every month. And all the constituency MPs, or any list MPs who support constituents in their area, know that what I'm saying is true. It's getting harder and harder and harder for people in need to get access to the public service support they deserve because the government is running down public services. Mr Okenvold also talked about us squandering our money. We didn't put anything away for a rainy day. Mr Speaker, that is just wrong. I can remember Michael Cullen year after year after year delivering on the public record a budget surplus, and Bill English sitting over here braying at him to spend it on tax cuts. And Dr Michael Cullen said that tax cuts for the most wealthy New Zealanders was not the right thing to do with a budget surplus. It was better to save for a rainy day and invest in our future. That's what he did, and it's the opposite of what this government is doing. Mr Speaker, I think that this government should look at addressing the symptoms of poverty in a much more holistic way, as well as the causes. Putting increased money into treating children who have rheumatic fever is very good, and we need to do that because we have children with rheumatic fever. Those are the symptoms, but unless they also invest in the causes of poverty-related illness, then we'll continue to have children who don't just have a disease and then get better, but children who pay for their entire life in diseases of poverty, diseases that are preventable, and diseases that should be an embarrassment on the public record of this nation. We are not a third world country, but we have children in our nation who have diseases that are common in third world conditions, and that is where we should start investing in our children, in their health and in their well-being, and that's not what this investment sees. What the National Party is driving is a two-speed economy. We have two speeds geographically, with the main cities doing very well and the regions stagnating. That is not a good thing for New Zealand. It's not a good thing for the prosperity of the regions, obviously and literally. But it's not good for the morale of those areas either. We know what happens in provincial towns where we have high levels of unemployment and with young people leaving school with no hope, with no light in their eyes, with nothing to look forward to in their area. They leave, they go to cities for a better time and a job, and they don't return, and the downward spiral in the provinces continues. Under National, that has just ratcheted up. We have a two-speed economy with the cities doing well and the regions stagnating. We have two speeds within our economy where exporters and our manufacturers are struggling. Some of the best and brightest of our country struggling to survive while our speculators are doing very well. What sort of economy do we want? Do we want an economy that is based on cheap jobs, low-income jobs in tourism and hospitality, where we have bigger and better casinos and lower-paid workers and casualised labour looking after the tourists who come to New Zealand? Or do we want a strong, high-wage, high-skill economy where industries like our manufacturing sector are supported? We're getting the opposite under National, where we see punishment of exporters and manufacturers and support for our speculators. We see the two-speed economy in Auckland, where the growth in the house prices is absolutely rampant. We have suburbs in Auckland where there is nothing to be bought, no property to be bought for less than $1 million. That used to be the exception. Now we have entire suburbs, $1 million suburbs, Mr. Speaker. And yet, where we have people who are queuing for jobs in a supermarket, when a vacancy is advertised in a supermarket in Auckland, hundreds of unemployed people try to get that one job in the very next suburb to those $1 million houses. So we have also a two-speed economy in regard to fairness, with incomes and wealth becoming more and more concentrated in the hands of the few, where the gap between those who are doing well and those who are not is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every month. Growing inequalities, growing tension, growing frustration. This is the opposite of the healthy society that we in New Zealand have been so proud of for so long. And we certainly have a two-speed economy in Christchurch. Half of our city is depressed and angry, to the point where our District Health Board is issuing quite strong warnings about it. They're angry because they've got wrecked roads, they've got no community facilities, no pools, no libraries. They've got houses that they either can't live in because they're so badly damaged, or they're not allowed to because the government minister, Jerry Brownlee, refused to allow rockfall mitigation on the Port Hills, on City Council or government land. Mr. Speaker, this is not the sort of budget that is going to address those fundamental issues. It's not the sort of budget that's going to address that two-speed economy. Labour's Kiwi Build will build 10,000 affordable houses a year. That's the sort of smart thinking and long-term investment we need in New Zealand. Homes will be sold to owner-occupiers for what they cost to build, not to speculators who are banking on future tax-free capital gains. That's the sort of speculation the national budget supports. That's the sort of inequity that it produces, where the speculators are doing well and the young people struggling to buy their first home can't get their foot on the front doorstep. That's the sort of society that National supports, and it's not one that I support. Labour's New Zealand power policy will reduce average household power prices by $230 to $330 a year and lower business bills for their power by 5 to 7%. That's the sort of smart thinking and investment in New Zealand families and New Zealand businesses that this country is crying out for. Mr. Speaker, our current electricity market has excessive prices. We know that. We know that the boards and management salaries have been excessive, but National continues to back it. We want a budget that gives New Zealand hope We want a budget with vision for the future, for a fairer, more equal and a healthier nation. That is the opposite of what National's delivering, and it's the opposite of what Labor will do.
I call Todd McClay.
Mr Speaker, thank you. The last speaker in this debate started her intervention by attacking my hard-working and very intelligent colleague, Chris Ockenvold. And she mentioned that she thought he could do so much better in his speech. Well, his speech